Okay, here we are back at Feel the Force. And today we have a force of nature to contend with, Teal Swan, who is a leader in shadow work and relationship psychology. And today, dear Georgios is going to elaborate upon her astropsychology and highlight as to why she's such an important spiritual luminary, psychic, and controversial figurehead today. So yes, Georgios, thank you so much again for coming on board.
Thank you.
And so here we have Teal. I just thought we would tuck into Teal because it'd be nice to do, a woman, obviously, for a change. And so she was born on the 16th of June, the sun in Gemini, with an ascendant in Cancer. And what are the obvious sun sign Gemini traits that she has and that she demonstrates in her personality to start with?
Like the most obvious traits are that she likes to be very intellectual, very smart. In the way she speaks, she's very articulate, and she's basically a teacher. She likes to educate people, to tell them something that she knows about, something that she learned, so they can learn. And in this sense, she's a distributor of information. That's what Gemini likes to do. And she talks about a variety of topics, but her main focus is in psychology. That is probably because her sun is in the 12th house, which is the sun of mental institutions. A lot of people who have this sun, they work in mental institutions as psychologists, therapists. They help the sick and disabled people.
Right.
And they do that because they are very good at introspection. Because the 12th house, here the sun is not very aware of the self. This is the house where the sun is aware of the self the least. Mm-hmm. It's almost like there is no self. The self is very much focused on the other and the collective unconscious.
Yes. Yeah.
So she tries to work a lot with bringing the unconscious to the conscious. Yes.
Totally. In fact, in many of her videos, she keeps emphasizing the fact that she's working for the collective and the higher awareness of the collective and bringing the conscious into the light, so to speak, into the light of awareness. And by extension, we mentioned in the pre-show talk, her Lilith placement was in Pisces.
Yes. Basically, when we talk about Lilith, we're talking about an aspect that is very, very little understood. Lilith has been something that I studied a lot. And in my experience, Lilith is about that which gets the person into trouble, because the person is known to bring very, very much the original nature into this topic of life. Original nature is based on instinct. Lilith is based on the biochemistry that communicates as an intelligence to tell you about things that the mind cannot know about. Lilith knows everything. She's kind of like the soul that has access to everything that's hidden. That's why she's called true black moon Lilith, the dark side of the moon. And in her chart, it's in Pisces, which means she likes to talk about things that are very unconscious. People don't know about that. She likes to go into things where people don't usually look. And Lilith basically gives the person insights about this area that the mind cannot know about, like I said before. And it's in the 9th house, which means she likes to debunk philosophy. She likes to debunk things that other people say, education that is being distributed, because Lilith basically, she rebels against that house. She tries to expose all the blind spots that this house represents, which is the house of philosophy. So this is how it comes out in her work. It's very good for her because Lilith in the 9th house and the 3rd house, it makes a person much more intelligent because the person has access to an intelligence that comes from instinct. It's like the person gets immediately an insight, like, hey, I understand this thing. I don't know why I understand it, but I just get this higher knowledge out of nowhere.
Yeah, and that's perhaps why she's so disliked and, dare I say, hated by many people who love the side of spirituality that's kind of like more like sunshine, gumdrops and roses, as she says, the positive, magical thinking side of spirituality. You can create your own reality. Whereas Teal is more interested in walking into the tornado, as she once said, rather than running away from it, And in her video, Spirituality 2.0, she mentions that no matter what you do, it's a motion to try to run away from powerlessness, which is actually a very bold, honest, sobering statement that many people don't want to look at. And that sounds like that ties well into her Lilith placement about highlighting those unconscious shadows in the collective.
Yes. Lilith shows you what the person is hated for. They're doing something that other people don't like because people don't like what the instinct is originally saying because it's the dark side. Lilith is the dark side. And she doesn't care for any rules or laws or whatever people want or think. Or she's beyond the program. And her Lilith is conjunction Pallas. Now Pallas, on the other hand, is about debunking programs because this is Athena in Greek mythology, and her spirit animal is the owl. And the owl can see in all directions, can rotate her head, and that means she doesn't have any blind spots. She can see everything. So this Lilith helps her to debunk other people's blind spots by seeing beyond where they are currently stuck in the situation. And I think this has to do with her early life, which you talked about before we did this video, that she was having a very traumatic childhood in which she suffered from ritual abuse because she was stuck for many hours a day inside a very closed space, and she was not able to do anything in that space. So she had to find ways to reach out beyond her confinement, the confinement of the mind, which again is both Pallas in one way and Pisces Lilith in another way. And her other 12th house placements show that her early life, she was spending a lot of time in isolation and seclusion. And this kind of life, which is very typical for people who spend a lot of time in prison, incarceration, or very alone in an environment where they are kind of like in a womb. In a womb, that means they are spending time very much in the deep waters of the collective unconscious. They're not doing much else. So that is why she went into this work, what she loves to do, this kind of thing.
Yes. So in an ironic and almost perverse way, that ritual abuse actually informed her work and helped her develop the HSP, the highly sensitive powers that she admits to having, but she's often criticized as flaunting them or bragging about them. But there's a difference between saying, look, I have these special abilities, and actually continuing to talk about it, and which she doesn't do in her videos. She is more on the content and focusing on the collective and helping people's unconsciouses. But yeah.
Yeah. Her Gemini is very much focused on just intellectually giving people information, giving them knowledge, and people, when they criticize her, they don't criticize the content at all.
No.
They don't criticize her teachings. They just criticize how she does things.
Yeah.
They don't criticize the results of what she's doing.
Yes. I've encountered...
It's quite interesting.
Well, a certain academic who's very intelligent, but nothing to say about the content, but it's just the person is criticized, and she can be labeled as quite dark or demonic, and maybe that ritual abuse cast an imprint on her or something.
Well, I would say it's the 12th house placements. There's a 12th house on myself who has all the placements that she has also in the 12th house. Every time I go into a shop, everyone thinks I'm a thief and I stole something from the shop. I get stopped all the time because people think I stole something that I didn't steal. And this is very much the 12th house thing. I had a discussion once at school where we made a circle, and each class student was saying something about another student.
Yeah.
They were trying to describe the personality of someone who they are not friends with. And then this guy was having to talk about me. And then he said, I can't figure this guy out. I don't know what his personality is or what he thinks, or it's just, I can't figure him out. And this is very much of a 12th houser. Why? Because there's no one to figure out. There's no one there. It's a 12th house. It's the house of dissolution. There's no self there. So who are you going to figure out? There's nobody home. So that's a funny thing. People, they make the mistake sometimes. They try to, okay, I need to put this person in a box. I have to put them there, like it's almost like a compulsion. So they put her in a box, even though she doesn't belong there. At least she's in a box, Better to make something up than have nothing.
Yeah.
And on the other hand, her moon is in Aquarius. It's emotionally, the way she expresses herself is very cold and detached. So people, if they are very attached people, like if they're very love and light, for example, which a lot of the spiritual community is, they will not like that. Because she's not like that. She's speaking in a community that is dominated by this kind of people, but she's not reaching this kind of people. She's not one of them.
Yeah, her delivery, she kind of reminds me of an elf from Lord of the Rings. It's slightly cold and detached, but really wise and intelligent and kind of all-seeing. So it has that elven aspect. Can't put my finger on it. But, yeah.
Well, it makes sense,
So
she does have a lot of water as well. It's the combo water and air. It's very much like Elven, like air, bows, shooting bows, talking very smart, being very light and thin and athletic. And on the other hand, they have magic. The magicians, witches, sorcerers is very intelligent. She very much has that energy in the chart. The water and the air. Combine that and you have what they say in starseed origin, the Pleiadians, for example. Like whether you believe in the stars or not, is very much that kind of, I live in a crystal house, I cast spells and I read books energy. And she has the Cancer ascendant. So the way she comes out in public is like, oh, I'm this magical woman. I'm so spiritual. But when you listen to her talk, and she's like some kind of professor or psychologist, has nothing to do with being like magical.
No.
Her content is actually. So she has this kind of dynamics going on.
Exactly. Yeah, and her videos, they're so well structured and thought through and loquacious, and you know, a lot of it, intellectuals, as you mentioned before, might be quite intimidated because on the one hand, she's like this kind of airy-fairy spiritual personality, but she's like super, super intelligent. And
it's not the stereotype of a woman.
No.
Women are supposed to be, people are still stuck in gender roles, let's face it. Women are still considered to be housemaids, cooks. But it looks awkward when she's playing the role of a man. And she's doing that with her teachings. She's doing what is normally dominated by men. To talk about psychology in such an intellectual manner, very, 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 very few women are doing that. I know a few names, but people are just not expecting that from a woman.
Yeah. It's fascinating because people who want to study psychology or relational psychology in university, they might as well get a free course watching Teal's videos, because they're so thorough.
Yeah. She has a lot of aspects that make her very polarizing, because on one hand she's like intellectual almost to a fault, like very intellectual because of this intellectual moon with intellectual sun, intellectual Mercury, intellectual Venus, blah blah. But she has Sun opposition Neptune. And this is usually the person, they're very up in the air. They actually spend a lot of time imagining things, dreaming about stuff. They're very much in their emotions, and they're very unclear about who they are or how other people look at them. They actually have a lot of problems sometimes. These people, usually I know from experience with clients, that they were insufficiently mirrored as children. So they always feel unsafe about how are they supposed to look to other people. They have really trouble blending in, and they're usually judged by others as being aloof, strange, weirdos. And they themselves, they sometimes lack awareness of how they look. And at the same time, they're susceptible to manipulation, gossip, slander, stuff like that, which is basically what happened with her in the documentary, The Deep End, and how her whole name was slandered. And she was inviting people into her work, letting her record her, even though they were complete manipulators, complete psychopaths. I mean, they were wishing her birthday wishes, congratulating her and stuff like that. But then they stabbed her in the back, and they intended from the beginning to expose her.
It was kind of like a witch hunt. Yeah, almost.
And she didn't even get paid for that.
No, I mean, what aspects of her chart would, let's say, court that kind of negative attention, and also that kind of tendency to be completely taken out of context, misinterpreted,
Moon in the 7th house on one hand, and Chiron in the 11th. So the thing with Moon, there are good placements of the Moon and bad placements of the Moon. The 7th house is a bad placement because I think we've seen this before with Osho. Let me check, actually. Basically, displacement is about the mother was completely absent. She was very, very selfless, the mother. She was always focusing on other people and on the father, for example. And she was very dependent for other people to regulate her feelings. This moon is difficult because the person is too giving. She's always, it's almost like the comfort zone is expecting that people are good. And it's because as a child, your mother, she was using you to regulate her emotions, and you needed to be there for that. So if other people use you, they have the intention to use you, and you can feel it, your body's like, no, this is normal. I'm normal to be used. So these people, they often get with manipulators and stuff like that. And the 12th house placements, like I said before, these people are very not so aware of who they are, not only for themselves, but also for other people. And the Sun opposition Neptune makes it just much more worse. You know, people can say what they want if she has psychic powers or whatever. And these are psychic placements indeed. These are very good for a medium. But it also makes a person extremely susceptible to manipulation. This is the shadow aspect of Neptune, of the 12th house. So people always have to balance not falling victim to their own projections.
Right. Well, it's strange because if she has all these higher sensitivities, surely she would know that there was someone who wanted to use her or manipulate her. Or is that not the case?
She would know only if she has integrated the shadow side. Basically, the 12th house and the 7th house are psychic placements, Neptune. These are the archetypes of a magician on one hand, and on the other hand, the lover. The lover is aware of what other people are feeling, and the magician is aware of what other people are thinking. But if you are, if you haven't separated, if you haven't individuated fully, it doesn't matter what you know or how psychic you are. If you are rejecting what your own body is telling you, because you think, oh no, I need to be detached, which is also a Moon in Aquarius thing. Moon in Aquarius is not an easy position for that reason. Because, oh, what feelings do I have? I don't need to worry about mine. Aquarius is always focused on the collective. Aquarius is the least personal person of all. And it's this lack of personhood, this lack of being separate as an individual that makes a person so susceptible to manipulation.
Yeah, I can relate as an Aquarius myself.
I have 11th house South Node, so I know.
Yeah.
I always like, I can go into every group. I don't care if they like me or not. I know I can blend in. I know. I'm a chameleon. I can fit anywhere.
Yeah.
Because whatever personality I have, it can be changed at any moment. You never know what you're going to get.
Yeah. Yeah.
She's lacking fire. In other words, keep it simple. She's lacking identity. The fire is the identity. The I am is missing.
The fire of identity.
That is what she has to develop.
Yeah.
One thing she got going, however, she has 2 fireplaces in her whole chart. Uranus and Sagittarius, which I don't count because it's Uranus. And the other is the midhaven. And the midhaven is in Aries. And this is not a planet, but because the midhaven is about her professional life. That means she gets off on fighting people. She loves to say something to contradict others.
Yeah.
So this is very good for her. This is what she has to use. And this is why getting slandered, the deep end, is probably the best thing that ever happened to her.
Yeah.
Because Now she's forced to embody that Aries midheaven at the most optimum. And from that midheaven, she will develop a personality.
In fact, she defends herself very well in the counter argument.
Now she's coming out.
Yeah, finally, that kind of sassy, fiery side, and this because they completely took one event, well, several events out of context, you know, and then she shows what actually happened, and then she's like, and here is what actually happened. You know, she can tell she's really fired up about it. But you know, but that's what you have to do if you want a sense of identity. You need that fire to say, actually, no, they're wrong. You know,
identity is all about separation.
Yeah.
Look, this is me and this is you. You are shit. I am this shit. For example.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
By the way, another very interesting, I just spotted that her ascendant is conjunction Juno.
Juno.
This is very interesting because Juno is the Greek goddess Hera.
Zeus's wife.
Zeus's wife. And she, you know what she did? She tried to kill Hercules. She was jealous of Zeus's wives. Because after hundreds of years, Zeus got bored of her. He was looking for other women. And Hera was a magician. She was very much an intelligent woman. And she was the goddess of fertility. She was a goddess that would be there for midwives and mothers giving birth. And this is interesting because this is a very, very big part of a personality. Because it's right on top of the ascendant. Everything that's right on top of the ascendant is like the deity comes out for this person. It's like the person becomes a medium for this goddess or god.
Oh, wow.
So if you're looking to understand the way she is, you can study Hera.
Ah, yes. Well, she does have that goddess aspect, you know. Very imposing, formidable, like she came from a higher planet or something, you know. Yeah.
She also has another part of her work, what she's doing, the healing that she does, is a Chiron conjunction North Node. So Chiron is the wounded healer, is the kind of asteroid. I call him a servant of darkness. All these asteroids, the aspects of darkness like Lilith, Pholus, Nessus, Pallas, Pluto, the lord of the underworld. These planets are about trauma work. And with her North Node there, that means she has to develop a lot of self-healing. She's dealing with a lot of childhood wounds. So basically, I would say everything that she's doing is because she's doing it on her own. She's using herself as a template for her work. And like some other teachers, like what was it? Ellen Watts, she has a 5th house South Node, which is very good for people who are in front of an audience. They feel unusually comfortable there because they are very good at embodying a king or queen energy. So this is not what they have to develop. Actually, what they have to develop is to be more like a magician, like a strategist, like a tactician, someone who's very detached and dispassionate, who can look at things without any emotional involvement.
Yes.
And of course, she has other places for that. So that's not going to be difficult for her. Yeah. For her, the difficulty has always been to bring balance between all these different aspects. What in her chart is missing is the archetype of a warrior. she's not very good at being a warrior. The deep end is forcing her to become a warrior more. And she's not, I don't know if she is a good lover in that regard. With a fifth house south node, maybe, but I don't know about her. Basically, everyone has this kind of shadow aspects, and maybe early in life she had to learn as an adaptation to be more apathic, more indifferent, because that's what the moon in Aquarius is basically about anyways.
Yes, and that would cause her to be more, have a more, as you said before, a top-heavy focus with that moon in Aquarius.
Right.
So, which is why many, or a lot of people might feel that she's on a different radio frequency because they can't quite grasp, her almost ethereality of how she receives information and conveys it. So,
yeah. She's very detached. Normally, people who are that detached, you see them in monasteries. They're like monks. They're not intellectuals. Like, what is this? Why is a monk being an intellectual? It's very polarizing. She's not a full monk. She's not a full intellectual. So people from both parties are going to hate her. Because the monks expect her to be a monk.
Yeah.
But we're not getting that. And the intellectuals are expecting her to be an intellectual, and we're not getting that either.
Yes. And in today's society where everything has to be put in a box so you can be packaged and sold, it doesn't really work.
Even with astrology charts, we are always trying to categorize people.
Yeah.
Because categorizing, judging people in good and bad, dark and light, feminine and masculine, it helps us to make sense of a world and the people that we're dealing with. If we cannot make sense of them, then we feel very insecure. It's anxiety producing, it's cognitive dissonance inducing. She's more for the kind of people who can hold the cognitive dissonance and can stay with it for a while without falling victim to it. But most people are not like that. So most people are probably not going to like her because of that reason.
Indeed. How are we doing for time?
We have 6 minutes.
Okay. Well, one more thing I wanted to touch on was that very aspect about the people who do tend to follow her either do it for, selfish gain, manipulation, as we already talked about, but also who want to deepen their level of understanding about themselves and the collective. And most of her followers are, for the most part, very brave and have been through a lot of trauma themselves. So, of course, there could be a kind of, would you say, almost a trauma bonding there with her followers, or is there something more to that than that?
Yeah, that's another thing Teal Swan is struggling with. She, all these 7th house and 12th house placements is, like I said in the beginning, her problem is that she's not a warrior yet. That means she's not a separate individual yet. So she gets enmeshed with people all the time. So she's actually quite easy to manipulate in that sense. Her intelligence cannot protect her from being manipulated. That's what people are getting wrong. People are not manipulated because they're stupid. They're manipulated because they're trying to belong.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong. When I say belong, I don't mean, I need to be part of this group, but rather, as soon as I am in this group with these people and I'm working with them, things get mixed up. I can't stay separate because there's no separation yet.
Yeah, she mentioned, what do you value more, freedom or connection? But, in a way, you can't have one without the other, because the freedom is the independence, the separation. Whereas the connection, how can you truly connect with someone, and without compromising your essence and being authentic? Now, that is basically her mission, isn't it?
You have to be vulnerable and open, while being separate at the same time, which simply means you have to feel safe. Yeah. When you feel safe, then it's easy to be open. It's no problem. Connection is automatic. It's not something we have to worry about. It's just that there's so many defense mechanisms that we use to make it messed up. And these defense mechanisms are trying to do different objectives at the same time. Like with her, she has a problem. Am I a monk or am I an intellectual? There are the psychodynamics at play, and she tries to balance them. And basically, I think that's how I see it. Only when we can embody all the four archetypes of the king, the magician, the warrior, the lover at the same time, only then can we really be balanced. Otherwise, we will always bounce between polarities.
Yeah, she does mention that in one of her videos, in the Divine Masculine video, to read that book, King, Warrior, Magician, Lover. Highly recommended book, amazing read, about the four archetypes and their shadow aspects, which is fascinating. But yes, no, thank you so much for today, and I hope that's been fruitful viewing for you. And let's keep the fire of identity strong.
Resist, believe you.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much.
Yes, you too. Okay. Where is it? This is weird.